the Pakistanis have decided to forcibly expel uh, almost 3 million Afghan refugees. This is causing a massive humanitarian crisis. There's been very little effort to put pressure on Pakistan to not take this decision. The UN Secretary General, who never stops his virtue signaling and batting for causes of terrorists. For example, he was very quick to go to the Middle East, but he hasn't bothered to visit the AFPAC region and do something about the humanitarian crisis. But the Pakistanis who demand citizenship, even when they go as illegal immigrants to Western countries, do not want to give anybody citizenship of their own country. These are people who are going to be thrown into Afghanistan, a country which has absolutely no resources and no facilities to accommodate these people. And then, of course, there is the extortion which is taking place by Pakistani police, the Pakistan Army, Rangers and what have you, who are extorting money from the Afghans. They can be put in prison, they have no legal recourse. So a lot of this money is being taken away from them by Pakistani security forces. The attention of the world since October 7th has been fixated on events in the Middle East, the crisis in Gaza, the Israeli military operations against the terrorist group Hamas, and the entire focus is on that. It's moved away from what has been happening on the Russia-Ukraine front. But there is another very monumental humanitarian tragedy which is taking place even as we speak in our own region, especially the AFPAC region, where the Pakistanis have decided to forcibly expel almost 3 million Afghan refugees. About 1.5, 1.6 million of them are undocumented refugees, and there are another about a million and maybe even more people who have some kind of certification, some kind of proof of registration, as it's called, and even they are going to be expelled by the end of December. Now, this is causing a massive humanitarian crisis, but nobody seems to be talking about it. There are the normal pro forma kind of noises which have come from people who I call human rights entrepreneurs and from some of the Western governments who normally are very, very active and very engaged in protecting human rights around the world. But on this particular issue, they've been rather mealy-mouthed. The Americans and the British have done something to evacuate some of the people whom they had promised refuge in their countries. Some of the other Western countries have also done the same. But by and large, there's been very little effort to put pressure on Pakistan to not take this decision to expel these people and virtually throw them to the wolves. Now, it's not just the governments, it's also international organizations like the United Nations and others who have again made the normal noises, the virtue signaling they have done. We've had the UN Secretary General, who never stops his virtue signaling and batting for causes of terrorists. For example, he was very quick to go to the Middle East to try and do something on the crisis in Gaza, but he hasn't bothered to visit the AFPAC region and do something about the humanitarian crisis which has emerged because of the expulsion of the Afghan refugees. Now, what is happening is not just the fact that almost 3 million people are going to be forcibly displaced by the Pakistanis. Many of these people have been living in Pakistan for years, decades even. Many of them have been born in Pakistan. They are Afghan only in name, but they have been born and brought up and spent the best part of their life, or in fact their entire lives, in Pakistan. And according to Pakistani law itself, these people should be entitled to Pakistani citizenship. But the Pakistanis who demand citizenship, even when they go as illegal immigrants to Western countries, do not want to give anybody citizenship of their own country, especially if it's the Afghans. So these people are being now forcibly thrown out, and this is being done in a very brutal and merciless manner. There are no concessions being given except to a few thousand whom the Americans and the Brits want to evacuate. But other than that, the Pakistanis have dug in their heels and said that, well, legally they are on the right track. This is international law. Illegal immigrants or migrants have absolutely no rights, and Pakistan is well within its rights to forcibly repatriate them to their home country. At one level, the Pakistanis are right, purely on a legal point, and the Pakistanis also claim that they are doing this is a non-discriminatory move, in the sense that this is not aimed only against the Afghans. This is against all illegal immigrants. But we have not heard of any of, number one, there are no illegal immigrants from Europe or America or from any other part of the world who have come and settled in Pakistan. Only somebody really desperate, like many of the Afghans, would go and settle in Pakistan. But there are reports of some Bengalis and some Rohingyas, many of them who have come into Pakistan, almost decades ago. The Bengalis, many of them came shortly after or around the time of the 1971 war. They have lived in Pakistan all their life, but we have not heard of they being expelled or repatriated to Bangladesh. It's only aimed really against the Afghans, but of course the Pakistanis want to show that, want to indulge in the nonsense of non-discriminatory expulsions. But what is happening to the Afghans is something that needs to be documented and something which needs to be spoken about, because what the Pakistanis are doing is that they are sending them back, especially at a time of the year when the weather is going to be turning cold, winter is coming, and these are people who are going to be thrown into Afghanistan, a country which has absolutely no resources and no facilities to accommodate these people. These are people who really have, many of them have absolutely no links left in Afghanistan. They have no homes and hearths where they can go back to. The Afghan government or the Taliban emirate simply does not have the wherewithal to provide any kind of rehabilitation to these people. So they are being sent back at a time when many of them will die, if of nothing else, if not of hunger, then of the weather. But that does not bother the Pakistanis, and this includes women and children who are also going to be repatriated back to Afghanistan. Many of them are going to be kept in concentration camps, which Pakistanis call holding centers, and these are no better than the conditions in these camps are abysmal. No independent journalist or independent person has been able to go and look at what are the conditions in these camps, and yet the Pakistanis are being given a free pass by the rest of the world, despite this kind of tragedy unfolding before everybody's eyes. But that is not all. These are people who are being subjected to racial profiling of the worst kind. Most of them are Pashtuns, and they are being identified. In fact, the travesty is that Pakistan itself has a larger Pashtun population than Afghanistan, and many Pakistani Pashtuns are being now lumped together with the Afghans, and there are reports of Pakistanis who have been thrown out of Pakistan into Afghanistan, Pashtuns. In some cases, the Pakistanis have admitted that they made a mistake and taken these people back in. But there are other Afghans who had fled Afghanistan to escape the Taliban. These were people who either worked or had links with the foreign forces that were in Afghanistan from 2001 to 2021, before the Taliban took over. And many of them fear for their lives. They are vulnerable because if they go back, the Taliban might carry out reprisal killings. The Taliban have denied that they will do any such thing, but there are genuine fears among many of these people that they'll be arrested, they'll be tortured, might even be killed. And yet they are being sent back. Women who are among the most vulnerable sections of the population are also being sent back. We know the kind of treatment women are meted out in Afghanistan under the Taliban regime, and yet many girls, young women who are studying in schools in Pakistan, not that Pakistani education is anything to really write home about, but even so, they were getting some modicum of education, will be sent back and thrown literally to the wolves. But that is again not all. There are other minority groups, the Shia Hazaras, for example, who have also taken refuge in Pakistan. Again, not the best place for Shia Hazaras, because Pakistan's own Shia Hazaras have been subjected to the most brutal killings by Sunni terrorists, many of whom are backed by the Pakistani state. But even these people are going to be sent back, and we know that Shias are treated like Untermensch or lesser human beings by the Sunni supremacists in Afghanistan, and they are subjected to killings and all kinds of other actions by the Taliban and the Sunni extremists. So all of this is happening, and the Pakistanis claim that it's only for legal reasons and for economic reasons, because of the burden that is being imposed by Pakistan, harboring so many refugees, which Pakistan, given its own parlous finances, cannot afford anymore. Sounds very nice, but probably is very far from the truth. The real reason actually is that there has been a massive spike in terrorism ever since Pakistan helped the Taliban break the shackles of slavery, to quote Imran Khan, and many of the others who say, including somebody who might become a minister in the next government, Khwaja Asif, who have called the Taliban freedom fighters. Now, the Pakistanis have complained that there is a lot of terrorism that has happened in Pakistan since the Taliban have come into power, partly because of actions of the Tehreek-e-Taliban Pakistan, the TTP, which is very closely aligned with the Taliban, and the Taliban are not taking any action against the TTP. They are not restraining them, they are not controlling them. In fact, actually the Pakistanis are saying that the Taliban are actually controlling the TTP and are behind all acts of terrorism inside Pakistan, perhaps as a leverage against Pakistan. And what the Pakistanis are doing is imposing a kind of collective punishment on the Afghans by sending back these refugees. The idea being that Pakistan is exercising its leverage. Refugees are just one part of it. The Pakistanis have also taken other steps. They have taken, they've created obstacles in the Afghan transit trade, because a bulk of the Afghan trade with the rest of the world happens through Pakistan and Pakistani ports. So the Pakistanis have started putting restrictions on that. They've put some financial restrictions as well. And many of these refugees who are now going back, like I said earlier, many of whom have spent years, decades in Pakistan. They are not entitled to, because they have no documents in Pakistan, they are not entitled to any, protections of the law in Pakistan. Whatever properties, whatever assets, whatever they've created in Pakistan over the years, these are assets which the Pakistanis are now going to expropriate, because the Afghan refugees are only allowed something like 50,000 Pakistani rupees to take with them. And clearly that's not going to be enough for them to rebuild their lives going back in Afghanistan. Some of them are trying to do distress sales of their assets, their properties, their businesses, but even that is probably not going to be very successful, because we all know what happens when a distress sale takes place. And then of course there is the extortion which is taking place by Pakistani police, the Pakistan Army, Rangers and what have you, who are extorting money from the Afghans. They can be put in prison, they have no legal recourse. So a lot of this money is being taken away from them by Pakistani security forces, what these people are probably trying to carry back with them. The Taliban have spoken to the Pakistani authorities about this, about how their monies can be allowed back with them if they are being expelled, but there's been really no progress on that particular issue. Meanwhile, what is happening is that because of the issue of terrorism and Pakistani blaming the Afghans or the Taliban, what has started happening is that there is a lot of bad blood between at the governmental level between Pakistan and Afghanistan. The Pakistani caretaker Prime Minister Anwar Kakar has literally declared war on Afghanistan in many ways. The Pakistanis have blamed the Taliban for controlling the TTP and being behind the terror attacks on Pakistan. They have also blamed the Taliban for not taking action which is required. They have questioned this guy Anwarul Haq Kakar has actually even gone to the extent of questioning the legitimacy of the Taliban government in Afghanistan, and he has made a statement where he said that until there is a legitimate government in Afghanistan, no progress is really powerful. Now this literally is taking a U-turn over the Pakistani position that the Taliban are a legitimate stakeholder in Afghanistan, that the Taliban are a popular force, that these are the people whom the Afghans are not going to be against. These are indigenous people of Afghanistan, and that entire shebang which the Pakistanis have been floating to justify their support and their diplomatic support for the Taliban. All of that has now been turned on its head by the statements which have come out of Pakistan. Now there has been a pushback from the Taliban side, where the Taliban have said that Pakistan will have to suffer consequences of the actions that they are taking against Afghans. But what is now very interesting is also the fact that partly as a justification and partly to provide some kind of a rationale for the move that the Pakistanis have taken, a certain kind of anti-Pashtun sentiment is being fueled inside Pakistan by the media, by government ministers and others. And this is not only in Punjab, it is rampant in Punjab, where there's always been a bit of a tussle between the Punjabis and the Pashtuns. But we are also seeing this happen in Sindh, where ministers and politicians in Sindh are raving and ranting against the Pashtuns. They're talking about the Afghans, but literally, alluding to the Pashtuns. So there is this anti-Pashtun sentiment which is being fueled, and we don't know where this is going to stop. And what is extremely important is that many Pakistanis will argue that, look, there is a quote unquote Pashtun in Anwarul Kakar who is the prime minister who has taken this decision. Now everybody knows that these kind of decisions are not taken by puppets like Anwarul Haq Kakar, or not even puppet. He is more of a quisling as far as the Pashtuns are concerned. These are decisions which are taken by the military establishment, which is predominantly Punjabi. And these are people who have taken this decision, and it's not this showpiece of a prime minister who has taken this decision. What is also happening in Pakistan is that Pakistanis, incidentally, have always considered Afghan invaders like Ahmad Shah Abdali as heroes. In fact, they've named a nuclear missile after Abdali. Now, suddenly what we are seeing in Pakistan is that many Punjabis in Pakistan on public television have started questioning Abdali and his historical role. They have said he was an invader, he was a conqueror who came in, who pillaged Punjab, who raped and plundered Punjab, and suddenly this Abdali missile, which the Pakistanis were so proud of, doesn't seem to be really living up to its name in that sense. And the Pakistanis are now creating this anti-Pashtun sentiment, anti-Afghan sentiment, which really is not going to go down very well with a substantial Pashtun population in Pakistan. And we are seeing some green shoots of the impact of that on the Pashtun sentiment, not just in Afghanistan but also in Pakistan. And frankly, if something is not done about this kind of a step which the Pakistanis have taken, then the situation in the entire AfPak region, apart from the humanitarian crisis which is unfolding and which is quite tragic, I think the political situation and the security situation is only going to deteriorate as we move forward because of the very myopic steps that Pakistan has taken, not just in the expulsion of the Afghans, but that entire Afghan policy of Pakistan is now starting to unravel. And this will become even worse if Pakistan was to follow through with some of the threats it's been holding out against the Afghans, which includes taking kinetic actions inside Afghanistan against terrorist targets or TTP or some of the other groups which are operating or allegedly operating from inside Afghanistan. The Afghans deny that these groups are present in or operating or using Afghan soil, but the Pakistanis insist this is happening. So this standoff is only likely to get worse as we go forward, because if Pakistan thinks that a group like the Taliban is going to give in to their threats, then I think the Pakistanis will have another thought coming their way very soon, because Taliban ultimately feel that they are the people who defeated the Soviets in the 80s and the people who defeated the Americans in the 2000s. So the Pakistanis are not much of a competition as far as they are concerned.